Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing Explained. Here's today's question. So I've mentioned this throughout the show that I know a little bit about 1031 exchanges, but not a whole lot. But one of the things I do know is that there's a tight timeline when you're completing a 1031 exchange. So talk to us a bit about that.
The timeline begins with the identification period, which is really crucial. What's really important, just to take a step back, is make sure that you have the qualified intermediary has to be set up before the closing. So you have to identify the qualified intermediary because they're going to be the ones who are actually holding the funds, right? As soon as the seller receives funds, those funds become taxable. Make sure that you have the QI that's set aside that it receives the funds. Now, the first timeline that's really crucial is 45 days. So you have 45 days to identify properties that can be replacement properties for your 1031 exchange. So those three properties can be of any value. One of the challenges of the 1031 exchange is the tight deadlines that are associated with it. So the first deadline is this 45-day deadline. So these are 45 days when you have opportunity to identify three properties of any exchange value. Now, you want to make sure that all the proceeds are put into exchange properties because anything that's not placed inside an exchange property is going to be considered boot and will be taxed. And that's why for a 1031 exchange, individuals if they're selling a building for $1 million, they're going to want to exchange it for another building of at least the value of $1 million. So they can avoid those capital gains. They can delay the capital gains tax. So what's crucial is 45 days have three really important rules. 3 properties of any value. If you do want to pick more than 3 properties, well, at that point, you want to make sure that the combined value of those more than 3 properties is going to be at 200%. So essentially, if you sold a property at $1 million, and you want to identify 4, 5, 6 properties, whatever the number, you're going to make sure they meet the 200% rule, which is going to be $2 million in combined value. Now, if you're looking to do more than that, well, that means you have to purchase 95% of all the properties identified. That's quite rare, right? So because it really forces you to purchase 95% of the property. So those are the 3 rules when it comes to the 45-day identification period. Mike, do you want to talk about the next stage?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that, first of all, the deadlines run from the date of closing or whenever you transfer the property to the buyer. And the 200% rule, I just want to clarify that it's up to 200%. You don't have to, just to be clear, you don't have to identify 200%, but you can identify no more than 200% of the value, that double the 200% rule. Then you have 180 days from the closing of the sale to complete the closing or the acquisition of the replacement properties. And you can buy multiple properties, but they would all have to be closed and purchased within the 180 days. Now, as Alex said before, those are calendar days. So there's no tolling of the period for weekends or holidays. If your 45th day is Thanksgiving, you have to get your identification in by midnight of Thanksgiving, despite the fact that, I typically look at my clients' identifications and I do check them, but I'm probably half asleep in a tryptophan coma on Thanksgiving and probably not best to go reviewing people's documents. But I'm joking, but it just reiterates the point that these are hard, fast deadlines and it doesn't matter what else you have going on.
That's all for this episode of Real Estate Investing Explained. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get even more free content.